It's not every day I get excited about a webcam, but this one's got my attention. It's the OBSBOT Tiny 2 Lite, an AI-powered 4K PTZ webcam. It comes loaded with features and the image quality is really good. It's way better than the webcams that come built into laptops, even high-end laptops. Shout out to OBSBOT for sponsoring this video. Let's get the unboxing out of the way real quick. The package is pretty small and minimal. There's a multilingual user manual, can be helpful if you need some help getting set up and running. We have a USB-C cable to get the camera connected to your computer, and there's a USB-A adapter, so if you don't have any USB-C ports available, you can just use that. And here's the camera. It's really small, which makes sense because it's got the word tiny in its name. It's basically made up of a base and a 2-axis gimbal that holds the camera. The bottom has some grippy rubber, which should be helpful if you're sitting the camera directly on your desk or on some other surface. And there's a 1/4-20 thread mount there that'll let you get it attached to a tripod or other accessories. And this whole bottom plate's on a hinge so it can pivot to help get the camera mounted as level as possible. Plus, it makes it really easy to rotate in a position to capture vertical video for platforms like TikTok or Instagram. Setting it up on a monitor is super easy. All you do is pull out the little stand, and you can see this little edge that sticks out towards the bottom. That goes up against the front of the monitor, and then you push the hinged part all the way to the back of the monitor to support the camera. And you want to try and get it as level as possible, so play around with it a bit if you need to. Despite being so small, made of plastic, and weighing only about 92 grams, it does feel pretty solid and durable. It's not giving off any super cheap vibes or anything like that. Plus, having that pan tilt zoom function means you shouldn't really have to handle the camera too much to get your shot framed, and handling it less means there's less chances to drop it and cause damage. The Tiny 2 Lite captures video with a 1/2-inch image sensor, and that's much larger than what you'll find in typical webcams. And it has a 48 megapixel resolution. Big sensors have larger pixels that are more efficient at gathering light, often resulting in higher sensitivity and better dynamic range compared to smaller sensors with the same resolution. So seeing that larger sensor in here is a big deal. The built-in lens has a wide aperture of f1.8, which essentially means it can open really big and let in a lot of light. Wide aperture lenses are helpful in low light situations because they can allow more light to reach the image sensor. The full frame equivalent focal length of this lens is 26mm, which results in a 67.2-degree horizontal field of view. 26mm is a wide angle focal length, but I wish they went with something even wider, like 24mm or even 20, just to give me that extra little bit of flexibility to fit more in the frame or to bring the camera closer while I'm filming. The camera can capture 4K video up to 30 frames per second and 1080p video up to 60 frames per second. And if you happen to be on a lower end system where you need to drop the quality down to get smooth recording, it can also do 720p up to 60 frames per second. Capturing footage at 60 frames per second gives you the ability to get a 2x slow motion effect when you play that back on a 30 FPS timeline. Now, I think it'd be really cool in a future product or a future update to be able to see a 120 FPS recording option that would allow us to see a 4x slow motion effect. The autofocus is quite good thanks to the phase detection system that they're using in here, and if you don't know what that means, it's the same type of autofocus system used in high-end mirrorless cameras. It does a good job keeping the focus right on my face without me having to do anything to help it out. And you can switch over to manual focus mode and set the focus point yourself if you just want to have a constant unchanging plane of focus. The camera can zoom from 1 to 4x, but it's digital zoom only, which is not as high quality as optical zoom. But for a webcam, that's perfectly acceptable. The front of the camera has 2 built-in omnidirectional microphones with noise reduction, and they do a pretty decent job at capturing audio. It's what you're listening to right now. If you don't have a desktop microphone or some other type of audio recording device, then I think these are going to do just fine. As with any microphone, the quality is going to increase the closer the mic is to the source. And that's just because the closer you are, the less gain you need and the cleaner audio signal you're going to be able to capture. Now, it's probably pretty safe to say most people are going to put this camera up on their computer monitor like I have it right now. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you can get it off of there and attach to like an external boom arm and get it into a position where it's even closer to the audio source, then you're going to be able to maximize the audio quality that you can get from this thing. There's a software app called OBSBOT Center, and this is where you can take control of all the different settings and presets. You can enable different types of AI tracking depending on your filming situation. You're able to mask out the background to add some blur effects, and you can adjust this so that you can have just the right amount of blur for the look you're going for. There's a bunch of different filters that you can play around with, and these basically just change the overall look of the image. Some just change the colors, and some go as far as to apply effects to the shape of your face. We can take control of the pan tilt zoom functions and set the default starting position so you're not constantly having to pan the camera around every time you start up your computer. You can define custom presets to make setup time faster in different situations, and if you're a more advanced user, you can take full control over the image settings similar to a mirrorless camera. You have focus control, you can set your own shutter speed and ISO, and configure the white balance. And if you're not into software apps, it also supports gesture control. This will let you enable or disable the AI tracking or zoom in and out to adjust the frame without ever having to touch the camera or your computer. I find the AI tracking works pretty well. Doesn't seem to have trouble keeping me in the frame as I move around the room, and I think something like this can be useful if you're making videos on your own, let's say like a product review of something big and you need to move around the room a bit as you talk. If you want to get into creating gaming content for YouTube or other platforms or live streaming your gameplay, the Tiny 2 Lite's actually a really good way to get started. It's going to give you good image quality, which is obviously super important. It's got built-in microphones, that saves you from having to buy a separate mic. And the AI features along with the phase detect autofocus make it really easy to use. You don't have to know a ton of stuff about cameras to get good results, and that makes it very beginner friendly. I find that it works great to add myself onto the gameplay frame as an overlay, something that's very common in live streaming, and the footage just looks clear and focused, and it does a good job of maintaining details even in lower light situations. Plus it supports the OSC protocol, Stream Deck, and SDK, which make it a very broadcast or streaming friendly device. And if you want to create more advanced content and don't mind moving the camera around to capture creative shots, it does provide a good level of quality and flexibility to let you do that. All this footage you're seeing right now was shot on the Tiny 2 Lite with manual exposure, white balance, focus, and just a little bit of editing and post-production. The results you can get from this little webcam that costs under $200 is impressive. I think it's actually a viable option for content creators and gamers that don't want to invest huge amounts of time and money into an expensive interchangeable lens camera system. Also, OBSBOT tells me the Tiny 2 Lite's going to be discounted for Black Friday, so if you're watching this video before the holiday shopping season, you just might be able to pick one up even cheaper. If you want to know more about the Tiny 2 Lite, check the description of this video. I'll have more specs and details for you down there, along with some purchasing links so you can pick one up if you're interested. Thanks for watching, get subscribed for more content, and we'll see you soon.